everyone. I was asked if I could do a video for the cross keepsake pattern, so I'm going to attempt that today. This is the first one I made. It was a 3/8 inch Cindywood, this one here. It's 4 inches long about. Then I made this one on the KB Baby 3/8 loom. And because these pegs are quite fatter than these pegs, that's what made the difference. The diameter of the peg. They are still the same distance apart, but the diameter of the peg is quite different. And that, using the same pattern, made this one a whole inch longer and wider than the little one. So these were both done on 3/8, but it depends what loom you use. If you have the flexi looms in 3/8, this blue one here will be about the size, the same as the KB, because the pegs are the same width in diameter. For today's purpose, I'm going to use the 7/8. I did this one with the 7/8 loom, but this is number 5 yarn. So we'll see how it comes out with number 4. I like using number 4 on the 7/16 inch loom. Okay, so first thing I'm going to show you is how to cast on. Looking at the pattern, this is a free pattern. You can get it online at Cindywood. It's also on the Loom Knitting for Beginners group on Facebook. So the first thing we want to know is all the Ks that I use in my pattern are E-reps. So the first thing we're going to do is cast on. We want to cast on 6 pegs. For this pattern, you need 14 pegs. So like here, I'm going to cast on these 6 pegs. And then eventually we're going to increase 4 on each side to make the cross beam, this here, cross beam of the cross. So make sure that your loom has 14 pegs. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do a chain cast on. With Cindywood looms, I like to tuck the yarn in to the pin and do the chain cast on like this. You just do each one. You take your, let me do that again. So you have it tucked in. You'll take it around, both of these around. And then you'll use your fingers here to pick up this piece and pull it. Then again, you take that loop behind that peg and you pick up this working yarn and pull it. And you do that for all 6 pegs. Now, if you do not have a Cindywood and you're using KB, I use a slip knot. And I place it on the first peg. And then I sort of just make a loop like this. If you can see how I did. Just lay my yarn, then bring that loop to the front. There's also other videos on YouTube, how to do the chain cast on, if maybe you can see that one a little better. And when you get to the last one, I just lay the loop on there like that. And then bring your working yarn to the back. So now we have six of them loops on. And the next step I always do after I do a chain cast on, I don't start immediately right like this. I always do 1 row of U-knit back. So I always go around this peg here. I'm on the last peg. Always keep my working yarn on this side of the last peg. And I U-knit. Okay, just U-knit each peg, including the first one. Okay, then I just push them down a little bit, and I just tug on that yarn back there, and then tighten it up, just to get this yarn out of the way. It's on there, it's slip knotted on there, so it's not going to come off. Okay, so now you're ready for the first row of the pattern. The lower beam is your first row of the pattern. So row 1 is knit all, then row 2 is purl all. Okay, and you'll continue that till you do 20 rows. I don't mean 20 rows of knit and purl as one row. Like there's not 20 rows of garter stitch. There's just 20 rows. So what I do is I knit across. You're going to knit all pegs. So let me see if I can do this so that you can see. You just E-wrap all the pegs, first and last. And then you knit them off. Okay, that's row 1. So that's 1 done. You know, so you can come over and put a slash if you want to. I'm going to tell you how I do it. Is that's 1. And then I'm going to purl back. Bear with me. You know, it's always a little bit harder in front of the camera. I don't have the loom in my normal position, so sometimes it's just a little harder. Okay, so I'm going to purl back each one. And again, you're not skipping any pegs. You're doing all of the pegs. Okay, so that's row 2. So I went 1, 2. So how I usually do it is each time I come back to the starter peg, that's 2 rows. I did 1 and then 2. And then I put 2 slashes down on my paper. So I did 2 rows. But you can, if you want to do 1 row and slash, 1 row, purl and slash, that's fine. As long as you do 20 rows. Okay, so I'm going to do it one more time across. You want to knit all 6 pegs. And then, I don't like to push my loops all the way to the bottom because then you just got farther to knit them off. So whatever you like to do, you can do. Then I purl each peg. And when you purl, make sure this string is on this side of the peg. Make sure you're not in here trying to purl. Bring it to the back and then to the front and do your purl because you want your sides to be as nice and even as you can. Snug it up. And just purl each one across. However you do your purls is fine. Usually if I'm on my lap, I pick it up with my hook and slide it over instead of pinching my fingers. Sometimes it's just a little easier here at the table to pick it up with your fingers, but that's not how I usually do it. Okay, so again, that was 1 row of knit and 1 row of purl, so that's 2 rows. So you would mark 2 slashes off on your paper until you get 20 rows. Now, to speed things up, I have one already done, 20 rows. Here's the 20 rows, which is 10 garter ridges. So if you're thinking garter ridges, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 garter ridges. There's 20 rows. Okay, now we're going to start the increase on each side to make the crossbow. So on the directions, it says, with working yarn on peg 1. Okay, this would be my starter peg. I used the starter peg on the other side, but these green ones here are my original 6 pegs. The orange is where I'm going to. I'm increasing to the orange. So it says, with working yarn on peg 1, double E-wrap the next empty peg to the left. So just double E-wrap around and knit off. Kind of snug it up a little bit. Then it says to double E-wrap the next empty one to the left. So we did that. And it says repeat 2 more times till you have increased a total of 4 pegs. there's the third increase, and there's the fourth increase. Now it says you should have 10 loops on your pegs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 pegs and 10 loops. And now the pattern says E-wrap all 10 pegs. Now this is where I'm following. This is what we just did. With working yarn on 1, this is how we did it. Exactly like this. And we're going to E-wrap all 10 pegs. Okay? So that's what you'll do. Just E-wrap all 10 pegs. And knit them off. Those increased ones, the double E-wraps, might be a little tight there at the beginning, but once you get another row done, you won't have that problem. So just go slow there until it gets your tension. Okay, now we're going to increase the 4 on this side. So now the pattern is this one, increasing on the right side. So with working yarn on peg 10, okay, on peg 10, we're going to double E-wrap and knit off. And now on this side, I want you to E-wrap it again, because over here we increased and then I E-wrapped the whole way over. So each of these was increased and has a knit on it. Here, this is just an increase. So now we also want to put a knit on this one so that it'll finish out the row. So you will do your double E-wrap, then you will E-wrap it again and knit off. Then this peg has the same amount of knits on it. Like I said, these are a little bit tight when you're increasing. Okay, so you want to do that again. If you keep it a little bit looser, it'll help, but you don't want it too loose where you have big loops on your cross. Okay, so you'll double E-wrap again, knit off, and then knit again. Okay, and we need one more. Don't worry about how this looks. It might look a little loopy. It'll be fine when we come back through. It'll snug up with our other stitches. Okay, so that was an increase and another E-wrap. There we go. Now we have 14 loops on 14 pegs. And the next thing that it says is purl all 14 pegs. So now we're going to purl back to the beginning. You want to kind of snug that up a little bit. I hope you can see what I'm doing, but I'm just purling back. Okay, so there you did 14 rows of purl. This is what it looks like on the inside. You have your increased areas and your main 20 rows. And the next part of the pattern is to do 7 more rows. You do knit all, purl all, knit all, purl all. You do 7 more rows. Okay, so we're just going to E-wrap. You don't have to worry about laddering here, so you can E-wrap all your pegs. And then I just hold it with my fingers but I always knit off the ones I E-wrap first. That's the way I like to go. Some people do the other way. I don't care for that, and I don't like the look of that. And sometimes it makes your stitches too tight. Okay, so that was a row of E-wrap. So here on the pattern, here's what I'm doing right now. Okay, so I just did this row. So if you want to, you can just mark that row off. And the row 2 is purl. So now we're going to go back through and purl all of these again. Make sure that it's on camera. There we go. I didn't get all that one, so actually I'm going to take it off. This happens. I'm going to look back here and pick my stitch back up. Put it back on. And we're going to do that one over again. So I didn't have all the little pieces. This yarn splits a little bit, so that does happen. But we're just knitting all 14 pegs. Actually, we're purling all 14 pegs. I'm sorry. We're purling back. So row 2 was purl all pegs. Sorry about that. Okay. So again, on the directions, you can just mark it off, check mark it, whatever, but we're going to do knit, purl, knit all yet. Okay, so row 3, again, we're just knitting, E-wrapping all the pegs. Sorry about my phone, no control over that. 99.9% of the time the phone rings, it's spam.
Hello, this is the sheep resident. Please leave a message after the tone.
Okay, that's a knit row. Yeah, they never leave a message. Okay, and now we're on purl row. That first one's always hard to be pulled off. And it's going to feel funny to you because you feel like you're pulling this all off. Well, when you put it back on, just snuggle it up a little bit. It's fine. And then just continue to purl all the way across. Now, normally, since the phone rang, I would have stopped my video and restarted, but this is a lot of work to show you, and I already have so much done. So, please don't give me a dislike just because my phone rang. I had no control over that. Two more purls. There we go. So that's another row. I just have 3 more rows to do. Okay, so it's pretty easy, right, folks? It's just knit and purl. This is the same way with all my blankets, or most of my blankets are all knits and purls, and it's just a matter of where to put the knits and purls as to what design you're going to create. Splitting again. I'm going to make sure I just get the bottom loop. We got off camera a little. And the last one. Okay, so that's a knit. I'll mark that one off. So now I just have row 6 as a purl row. So we're back to this one again. So I did all the purls, and there's one more row I'm going to knit, and then we're going to stop on this side so we can start the decreases. Okay, so E-wrap them all one more time. This is row 7 of the cross beam. And then just knit them off the way you've been doing. I wanted to use the 7/16 so that's a little better for you to see. Okay, so this is what you have done so far. That's the cross beam, and this is your bottom beam. And now we're going to start decreasing. So if you're looking at the pattern, it says with working yarn on peg 14, we do have 14 pegs, so this is now peg 14, and I consider this peg 1, even though this is my starter peg. But for now, it's going to be peg 1 and peg 14. So it says with working yarn on peg 14, move loop, you know, it says purl peg 14. So the first thing we want to do is purl. Let me see if I can show you. It says purl peg 14, then move that loop to peg 13 and knit off. So how I usually do it is I purl it, but when I remove that loop, I place it on this peg here and snug it up and knit it off. Instead of purling and putting it back on this loop and then moving it, it's just a little bit easier. But I didn't really know how to write that up, so. Okay, so the next thing says purl peg 13 and move that one to 12. So you'll want to, this is now peg 13. If you count, this is 13. So you're going to purl that peg again. Take it off. Put your needle on, up underneath if you need to. And put it on this peg. Snug it up a little bit. And knit it off. Okay, then bring your working yarn to this side again when you're purling. Okay, then purl this one. And put it on this peg, the peg before it, and knit off. Okay, and you're going to do that one more time. So bring this yarn around, purl it, put it on this peg, and knit off. So now you've taken off. All of these that you increased are off, and you're back to your original peg there. This is what it looks like when it's off, or now you can kind of pull your stitches a little bit and kind of square it up as best you can. Okay, and now the directions say you should now have 10 loops. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And it's saying to purl all remaining 10 loops. So again, always put that working yarn on this side of the peg. And then purl these remaining 10 pegs. This is a very quick project. It's going a little slow with me doing it here like this on the table in front of the camera, but it won't take you long at all to make these crosses. And it doesn't take much yarn either. Little balls of scrap yarn. There you go. Now, the next part, we just did this purl all 10 remaining loops. Now we're starting here, decreasing on the left. It says with working yarn on peg 1. This is what I consider 1, even though this is was my starter peg. But this is 1. It says E-wrap peg 1, and then move the loop to peg 2 and knit off. Okay, so you'll E-wrap it. And this one, you'll actually have to take the loop off, put it on that one, snug it up a little bit, and knit it off. Okay, then you're going to E-wrap that same one again. Take it off and move it to the one in before. Snug it up and knit it off. Don't make it too tight, just snug it. Okay, then you want to E-wrap again and take it off and move to this one and knit off. And you want to do it one more time and move it to this one and knit off. Okay, so inside you have the same thing. Here's your little cross beam. It's pretty, it looks like it's shaped pretty good. This one looks a little funky right here because I didn't have my yarn quite as tight as I should have there. But being here at the table, it was hard for me to see. But it'll be fine. It looks fine. So now you're back down to the 6 loops you had to start. Now that's the next one is we're working on the top beam of the cross, which is this here part. It's real easy and real fast from this point. There is 10 rows. So again, we're going to knit. So that's row 1. And then we're going to purl all the pegs. And that first one is a little trouble in this position. I don't know why. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 pegs. That was purl. So I did 1 row knits and 1 row purl. So that's 2 rows. So once again on my pattern, I usually do 2 marks. And I need 10 marks to know I'm finished. So I use tally marks. It's my way that I do it. You use counters or whatever you want to use. I'm not here. I'm not trying to change anything anyone is used to doing. Okay, so there was knit. And 6 purls. So that was a knit and purl. So there again, that was 2 rows. 1 row knit, 1 row purl. So I'll put 2 more tally marks. And your next row is purl. Just lift that up with my hook. There we go. The yarn I'm using is I Love This Yarn by Hobby Lobby at the moment. This is some leftover I had from the beach blanket. Okay, that was 2 more rows, so I'll put 2 more tallies. That's 6. I got to go to 10. So once again, E-wrap all 6 and purl all 6. And that counts as 2 rows. So 2 more tallies. That's 8, so I just need to go one more time. Knit and purl one more time, and we're almost done. That's it. 2 more tallies and that's 10. So now we're ready to bind off. And I always use the same bind off I use for my blankets. So I'm going to leave 6 to 8 inches of yarn. Okay. On blankets where you do turning, like you always skip a peg at the beginning and you wrap the last peg, I always move those pegs. If you look at my blanket bind off video, you will see that. But in this case, we knitted and purled every peg, so I'm not moving any. I'm just going to start my bind off. So it says, with working yarn on peg 1, lay in front of peg 1. This is my peg 1 now that I only down to 6. So you always count how many has loops on, and that's number 1. So it says, bring working yarn up through loop 1, 2. So I usually also use a yarn needle, but since this is so short, it works just as well with your hook. So I'll go down through, pick up the yarn, and pull it up. Okay, then you'll lay it in front of this peg and take your needle up through, and you'll pull that yarn down. And pull it out. Okay? Then you lay it in front of the next peg and bring it up through this 3rd. And then down through the previous. Okay, so when you're laying it in front of this peg, it kind of creates 2 loops. So you'll want to, let me see if I can bring it up through this loop. And then go back and bring it down through these 2, it's kind of 2 loops since you laid it in front of there. So you'll grab it and you'll just pull it out. Then you lay it in front of this one and come over here and bring it up through. This is the exact way I do my blankets, except I use a needle because the yarn's usually so long, I mean. And come up through and bring it down. Okay, go up through your last one. Bring it back and bring it down through this one. And then I always take it back up through the last one. Again, that puts your yarn on the back. This is your back of your cross. This is the front of the cross. Okay, now just move them to the top and you can just take them off of, now you can remove it from your loom. Okay, now you just kind of snug it up, shape it, snug it up and shape it, but that is your cross. And that is finished. All you have to do is, I don't have the needle out here with me, but I just take it, weave it in and out right here close to the start and right here close to the bottom. I just sort of go in and out with my needle and then cut it real close. It's not like you're going to be laundering these and fooling with them that the weaved ends would come out. Okay, I like to also use embellishments. Like on this one, I used a charm and I sewed it on using a piece of the same yarn, except that I pulled it apart so it wasn't so thick. You can use buttons. You know, you could put a little flower in the middle. This is a shank button. And because it has that little shank on there, if you just use some glue, I like to use, this is a low temperature glue gun that you can get from Michael's for just a couple bucks. I think it's like $3 or $4. Or maybe with inflation, it might be $5. But anyway, use a coupon or a discount and just put a little bit of glue right here on the back of your button and stick it in there, and it's perfect. The shank will be sort of in your yarn and you shouldn't really see it that much. They do have shankless buttons that you can get. Also, this is a shank button, an old shank button, but I got it from my mom and I love it. It's shiny, and I don't know if you can really tell that on here, but I mean, that would look nice in the middle of a cross. Say you're doing Christmas ornaments, you could use like a Christmas tree. You know, if you're making Halloween ones, these shank buttons, they have so many of them at Hobby Lobby and Amazon that you can get just about anything you want. Snowflakes. I have leaves for fall. So, you know, if you're making these as an ornament to hang somewhere in your house, I love these magnets, these business card magnets, because they're very thin. They're very thin, and you can cut them with scissors to any size you want. They just cut real easy with scissors. And you can just peel this off and put it on the back, and then you can hang it on the refrigerator or a file cabinet if you have an office or anything like that. That's some ideas. Also, these stitch markers I used, you can get them from KB or Amazon. And I really love them. They're perfect. And if you happen, and it has happened to me, where you sew these into your yarn, you can just snip them with scissors and they'll come right out. You don't have to worry about having a metal one that got stuck in your yarn or anything. I really love them. And they're really nice. And they're cheap. And they last a long time. So I think that's about all I have to tell you. Here's another shank button that's really pretty. It's a crown. But it's so pretty. So, you know, if you have kids, if you're making one for kids or Sunday school or anything, these are some winter ones, little kids with their clothes on, a little doggy. They have so many of these. Even Walmart carries some like this. You know, so you can find them anywhere. You can find regular shank buttons, and if they're pretty, and use those. That's some options for you. Now, like I said, this is 7/16, so it's, you know, it's a bit stretchier than using the 3/8. See, there's not as many holes. It's still stretchy, but there's not holes like this one. You can actually stretch the holes. So maybe if you're making an ornament, I think the 3/8 is really nice. It's a nice size. You can put a loop here at the top. I've even suggested that you tie a piece of ribbon, a small piece of ribbon, and have it maybe 8-10 inches, and then you can have it in a book, and this could be out the top of your book, and the ribbon would go between your pages. So you're talking about bookmarks, magnets, put a loop on. You can just tie this loop or use another piece of yarn, or bring it in a little bit and make a nice loop. You could just bring this in with a needle to here, then leave a loop and then take it back out. So a loop, you could put them on your Christmas tree. Put them around your house. This one here is the 3/8 with the KB loom. It's still a little bit better than the 7/8. The 7/8 is quite loose, but it's still very pretty. But it's bigger. You can kind of see that it ends up to be a little bit bigger. You know, and I was even thinking that if you use the 3/8 KB and a 3/8 Cindy wood, you could actually put a little hot glue on there and have like a double cross. I think that's beautiful. I kind of really like that, especially if it was better matching colors. say if you had white, or then you did your cross in brown or something, and whatever. This was a variegated sort of colors. You can use absolutely any scraps that you have. The small, like I said, the smaller the gauge, the tighter formed cross would be. I think the 3/8 is about the ideal for the cross. But I guess that's about all I have for you. And if you have any questions, you can always message me. All right, thank you very much. Bye.